Carolina can clear. It's dropped back here for He scores! He got the shot through. Bobrovsky couldn't stop it. And it's 2-0 Carolina. As the Canes will keep it in deep. Florida looking to get it out. Forsling bounce it. Now it comes out in front. Holding shoot. He scores! Seth Jarvis with the turnover. And Carolina has tied it at 3. Reinhart will press this into the zone. Barkov will get to it. He'll skate up behind the net. Watched by Orlov. Barkov out in front. Verhaeghe shoots and scores. Oh, what a play by Alexander Barkov. And Carter Verhaeghe takes advantage, and Florida goes back in the lead. It's 4-3 Panthers.
It ended 5-3, and it ended Carolina's season. This is the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. We are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, it's brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. Or you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. But, of course, it is also brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. All right. Started off so bright, didn't it? Carolina 2-0 lead. Big picture things as we kind of move through here. And there are two stories to talk about. There is the game tonight, and there is also the series. All right, two different topics for us, various kind of tentacles of tonight and the whole 5-game series. But specifically to tonight, this is the game the way you wanted it, right? Carolina had not gotten off to a good start in any game against Florida at home. You played reasonably well in the first period of game one. But Florida got the first 2 goals. You get the skate goal from Aho late in period one. You think gives you some momentum. You give that away at the start of the second period when Florida was way better than you. And they skated that game out. The only time I'll really disagree with Rod, yes, Carolina didn't give up a lot of chances in game one, but I also don't think Florida thought they needed to. And they sort of just kind of sat back and just played defense because they're awesome at that. Anyway, that's quibbling. But ultimately, the start you needed to this game, you got. And you got it courtesy of a number of things, but the goals came courtesy your star. Sebastian Aho intercepting a pass, might have been Gustav Forsling, right? Intercepting the pass from Forsling and going the other way. And there were no dekes. There was just a shot. Aho decided, I ain't going to deke. I ain't good at deking. I'm going to shoot it. And he beats Bobrovsky. Tripp talked about it, right? I think it was just like under the elbow, glove side. And Carolina has a 1-0 lead. Pandemonium. There were some chances the rest of the way in the first period. Jordan Stahl hits the crossbar with a quick opportunity to make it 2-0. That doesn't go. And then late in the period, Jackson Blake makes a good play in his own end. Blake, who was playing with Aho and Jarvis on that ship because Svechnikov was in the penalty box. Blake makes a good hard play in the defensive zone, gets the puck out of the zone. Jarvis makes a good play to force a turnover from Mikko Mikkola, I believe. He gets it to Aho, who again unleashes a shot. And probably a goal that Sergei Bobrovsky wants back, but I don't care. And it's 2-0 Carolina. Things are grand. You go to the locker room 2-0. That's exactly the way Rod Brindamore drew it up. The funny thing is, and this is why I always caution people, it's sort of like investing. The analytics websites are great when you look at the whole. And I'm not talking about the whole of the game. Sometimes it tells you exactly what happened, but man, there are days where it can be misleading. I thought Carolina was way better than Florida in the first period, and I promise you Paul Maurice did. Analytically speaking, it was a wash. I watched. I have eyes. That was not a wash of a first period. Carolina dominated the first period, and they continued to dominate over the first 7 minutes of the second. They had good chances early in the second period. As he goes to his notes, I thought the trigger to all of Carolina's good play early in the game came from the Jankowski, Carrier, Robinson line, who I thought was excellent all night long. And I really thought they ignited Carolina in the first period, and they had a couple of great scoring chances early in the second. Again, same formula. And then Seth Jarvis makes a move around Seth Jones. I think he passed it to himself off the wall. Move around Seth Jones. Jones tries to drag him down. He does drag him down. It's a holding penalty. Jarvis crashes into Bobrovsky. Puck doesn't go in, unfortunately. But Carolina gets power play. 2-0 up, power play. And of the 5 power plays Carolina had, that was probably the best one. Didn't score. And at this point, you needed it to score because you had a chance to really put a dagger in to Florida at 3-0. I'm not saying Florida's going away, but I think you like your chances at 3-0 with a power play goal on the board. And Carolina had a good power play. They had plenty of chances to score on that one. They just didn't. And then right at the end of it, Jesperi Kotkaniemi takes an offensive zone holding penalty that was unnecessary. And I saw some comments on social media, and I get why we get mad at every call, where the notion was it had nothing to do with the play. It was at the other end. Why call it? And I think the flip side is more true. If it has nothing to do with the play, why do it? I think it was a little soft of a call, but it doesn't matter. It's callable, and you just had a power play, and Kotkaniemi goes to the box. And I am not going to sit here and lump the entire game on Jesperi Kotkaniemi because that would be, A, unfair, and B, absolving all the other mistakes that followed. So I will say this about what Kotkaniemi did. It's an unnecessary, dumb play. It's a low hockey IQ play. It put Florida on the power play, and the thing is, Carolina was playing so well. That power play that Carolina just did not score on was still good. It was momentum creating if you allowed it. And then you threw a blanket over it, and all of a sudden Florida's on the power play. And now you're running the risk of a super talented team, especially with the man advantage, just getting back into the game. Carolina won the draw, I think, won a draw. I don't know if they won the first draw. They won a draw. Burns couldn't get the puck, or he got the puck to Martinook, who couldn't handle it. And ultimately, the puck comes out just inside the blue line. Aaron Ekblad threw it at, actually ended up being wide of the net. And Matthew Tkachuk, from outside the frame of the goal, tips it just past Anderson for 2-1. And all of a sudden, Florida's back in it. Bump up shift. Tough one. I like the beginning of the bump up shift. Carolina was physical, but the puck still gets out. And now the Panthers have, to a certain extent, numbers. Alexander Nikishin probably could have gotten to the puck before Matthew Tkachuk. Either way, he could have done a better job on Matthew Tkachuk to the point where he sort of let him go. He should have been more physical with him. He should have just pinned him right against the wall. He had a chance to do that. He didn't. He backed off. Jordan Martinook comes over to assist rather than fill the middle. Martinook goes there. So at that point, Nikishin's got to get back. And he didn't. Evan Rodriguez beat Alexander Nikishin to the front of the net. And the pass across from, not even sure who it was, makes it 2-2. 30 seconds from the power play goal to the transition goal, and it's 2-2. And now the pressure is mounting on Carolina to stem this and get things back going the way they were before. Honestly, too late. I thought the next 5 minutes after that were, and it was even less than that, were just way in Florida's favor. Carolina had a hard time getting out of the zone. There was a situation where Sebastian Aho was chasing, the Barkovs and Reinhardts of the world around with no stick. Aho had his stick broken, and Carolina was caught. They end up with a defensive zone faceoff. Anton Lundell comes out. Aho loses the draw. Marchand throws it in front. Not only did Aho lose the draw, he lost the race to the front of the net. Now, there was contact and all of that, but you got to fight through it. You can't let your guy get to the front of the net. Marchand now has a target, and Lundell deflects it over Anderson. It's 3-2. 3 goals, 4 minutes and 36 seconds. 3 goals in 4:36 of the second period, and it's 3-2. Carolina had a late power play, didn't do much with it. So it's 3-2 going to the third period. And Carolina, I thought, started the period off pretty well. They had a couple of opportunities, and then Shane Gostisbehere pinched down the left wall, forces a turnover. Andrei Svechnikov bats it forward. Seth Jarvis pounces on it, and a cheeky little flip over Bobrovsky. Just the presence of mind to do that, just awesome. To make it 3-3, and Carolina, the building is nuts. Trip Tracy is on the Jumbotron, getting the crowd even louder. Canes in a pretty good spot. Whether you can push and get the go-ahead goal in the third period, or even if you take it into overtime. We haven't had an overtime in this series yet. And they just couldn't get that goal. And then Sasha Barkov makes a great play. Dmitry Orlov can't stay with him. I know there's a lot of Orlov, it's not even slander. There's a lot of Orlov criticism out there, and I understand. He was horrible in Game 3, and he made enough mistakes here in Game 5 to incur the wrath. I don't think he was nearly as bad as some of you, but it doesn't matter. He could not stay with Barkov, which, by the way, puts you in pretty good company. And Barkov ultimately got the puck across to Carter Verhaeghe. And this is where we point out other mistakes. It's not just Dmitry Orlov. On that play, Eric Robinson and Alexander Nikishin were both in front of the net, both doing nothing. So somebody's got to make the pass more difficult to make. It's probably Robinson's job, and somebody's got to be with Carter Verhaeghe on the back door. That's probably Alexander Nikishin's job. And for as well as Nikishin played in Game 4 of this series, as he was progressing, I think there was a step back tonight. And the ice time certainly showed that. He played about 3.5 minutes less tonight than he did on Monday night in Game 4. Hey, that ain't a knock on Alexander Nikishin, but what I am explaining is that this was always going to be a difficult situation for Nikishin to be in, no matter how good he is going to be. All the things that Rod says about communication and understanding plays and situations, that's what that was about. And Verhaeghe scores to make it 4-3, and Carolina had chances. Boy, did they have chances. Andrei Svechnikov right in the middle of the slot, dead slot, basically right at the hash marks. He drifts in just above the top of the hash marks, and he misses the net. Aho, I'm not sure if it was on the rebound of that came off the wall. Aho had a chance at the side of the goal and didn't convert. So that's what happened to Carolina tonight. It was a really good game until it wasn't. Just like, there are times, whether it's Game 3, where Carolina's playing a really good game, until you didn't in the third period. And that is where this got away from Carolina. And it was that one stretch in the middle of the second period that really spelled Carolina's doom.
Now it's Ekblad with it. He shot through and they'll score. Now a chance for the Panthers. Bennett out in front, they'll score. Marchand throws it out in front, and Lundell will score. Off of the faceoff, Marchand got to the loose puck, directs it out in front, and Anton Lundell pokes it over Frederik Andersen's shoulder, and it's a 3-2 Panther lead.
Rob Brindamore talked about it after the game. It kind of felt like that quickly, right? It did to me. Goal, 30 seconds later, goal. 4 minutes later, goal. And Carolina went from 2-0 up to 3-2 down. And you wondered how they respond. They responded pretty well in the third period. It was a wonderful hockey game. It's a fun hockey game. Unfortunately, the finality of it means the Carolina Hurricanes season is over. But Rod talked about after the game, and this is what you should be talking about, arguably your best player, at least your best forward, in Sebastian Aho. And that Aho will not be thinking about the 2 goals he scored. He won't be. He'll be thinking about losing the race to the front of the net with Anton Lundell. He'll be thinking about the late opportunity he had to make it 4-4. Because that's what great players do. They don't dwell on those successes. He will not think for 2 seconds about the 2 goals he scored in the first period. He is only going to think about the mistake in the second and the chance in the third. That's what he's going to think about. And that's fine. And maybe Aho will come back a better player because there's another level for him, right? We have to understand, while this is year 8, year 9, not even sure. I think it's year 8. I think 17-18 was his first season, right? It might have been the year before. Not even sure anymore. But there's still things for him to do better. And I know how, having talked to him enough, I know how he aches after things like this. And I know he will take this back to Finland with him in the summer, and he will come back in better shape. He'll come back stronger, and maybe he'll come back just a little bit, maybe 5% better offensively, so we can take some of the chances that don't get finished and finish them. Pardon the nationality pun. But this was a game that was there for Carolina to grasp. And again, this is not blaming Kokoniemi, because we talked about Kokoniemi, maybe Martinook on the power play goal, who couldn't handle the pass and it stays in. Certainly Martinook going to help where maybe he didn't need to help. Nikishin maybe should have done more and then didn't beat Rodriguez to the front. Aho, for as good as he was, lose the draw and then lose the race to the front of the net. Look, there were a lot of people that made mistakes tonight. But, man, taking that penalty stunk. I said it at the time. I walked down press row, and I forget who I said it to. And I didn't mean this literally. I just said, man, I would like to punch Jesperi Kokoniemi in the face right now, because it just was not a penalty to take. All right. Couple of other things. We got a bunch of things I want to get to here. And we've already gone about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway what I want to spend here. But if you are looking for a dissection, an autopsy on the season, probably not going to come tonight. Certainly not in any detail. We are going to get to that ASAP, just not tonight. There's too many things to unpack from the game and from the series, and where Carolina and Florida are different. I did appreciate the question more. I appreciated the answer when I forget which reporter wondered aloud if Rod should consider changing the way Carolina does things. And I know there were people out there going, yeah, we should change it. The system works. Florida does the same types of things. What Florida does is that Florida does what Carolina does, only with bigger, better players. Flat out. Bigger and better. I've done so many shows and so many wrap-ups at the risk of repeating myself. If we took every player who dressed for tonight's game, every single one, and put them on the ice and had a draft to come up with the top 18 skaters, 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and a goalie. If we did a draft and we started with the forwards, how many Carolina Hurricanes forwards would make the 12? The answer for me, and this is with mad love and respect for Jordan Stahl, the answer is 9 Panthers, 3 Hurricanes. On defense, of the 6 that started, of the 12 that played the game tonight, 1 Hurricane and 5 Panthers. It doesn't get any more glaring than that. I don't know why it is such a hard concept to grasp. The Hurricanes, and I know the question was asked, did the Hurricanes overachieve? In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. Like the regular season, that could have been, maybe should have been better. Of course, I'm not sure it would have mattered because ultimately the Hurricanes had home ice advantage in this series. They didn't have it in the last series, didn't bother them. The Devils were more of a mess than almost anybody with that level of talent, and Carolina still had home ice advantage over them, and they made it stick. They didn't lose a home game to New Jersey or to Washington. They lost 3 to the Panthers. The problem is Carolina couldn't beat Florida playing the way they play because Florida does it better and with bigger. So the system, the method, the strategy works. You just need bigger and better players doing it. It's not that complicated. It just isn't. And with all of that said, Carolina wins game 4. You know, were it not for not only the penalty, after the penalty that allowed the goals, if Carolina plays a little bit cleaner, if Nikishin gets to the front of the net and denies Rodriguez, by the way, for me, the only goal tonight that Anderson, I kind of wanted to save there. Not a bad goal, but I kind of wanted to save there. And Aho you can't lose that battle. You can't lose that race at the top of the crease. If Carolina is just a little bit better in those two situations, maybe Carolina gets away with the mistakes, but that isn't what happened. And that's why Florida's headed to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup. And the year before, they were the President's Trophy winner before losing in the 2nd round at Tampa. It's the best team. And I don't want to hear from, well, they cheated, they circumvented the salary cap. No, they didn't. They do it every time. What every team does. Long-term injured reserve. What Carolina has used in the past and what they chose not to use in the past. I'll take you 2 years ago. Should have replaced Max Pacioretty. Could have used his, whatever that money was, $8 million or $7 million in long-term injured reserve. Could have used that. Chose not to. They weren't doing that because they didn't want to circumvent the rules. Let's complain about the things that are worth complaining about and not act like babies. So, Florida, by the way, I don't know. I haven't looked at their entire cap situation this year, and I don't care. But they've got cap space, and the player like Sam Bennett, who Carolina, I don't ever anticipate Bennett playing for the Hurricanes because I don't think he's leaving Florida. But Carolina needs a player like Sam Bennett. Or Carolina needs a player like Aaron Ekblad. Those are both unrestricted free agents this offseason. And I don't think there's a chance on this earth that Florida lets either of them go. I really don't. All right. What were we looking for out of today's game? You wanted the top line to show up? They did. Aho was excellent. So was Jarvis. Best game of the series, I think, for number 24. Andre was excellent, too. So you got what you needed from your top line. Granted, there were the Aho mistake on the Lundell goal. Yeah, I hate that. Andre had some puck management issues, but I think for the most part, not even for the most part, nobody's going to play a perfect game. That you got what you needed out of your top line. They were excellent tonight. To me, the next best line on the evening was Jankowski, Robinson, and Carrier. My gosh, were they good. Fantastic. And I would not be against seeing them as a trio next year. And again, we're not going to talk about roster construction for the following season. Robinson is the only one of these players who is not under contract for next year. Carolina's got 11 signed forwards. 11. Robinson is not signed. I hope they bring him back. Could they survive without him? Sure. But I hope they bring Robinson back. I think he was a great fit here. I love the way he plays. And I think tonight, other than watching Sasha Barkov do his thing on the goal that made it 4-3, I thought he was excellent tonight. I thought that line was so good. How badly did Carolina miss Jalen Chatfield in the series? How badly did Carolina miss Sean Walker over the last 3 games? How badly? Yeah, very badly. Chatfield, who I saw downstairs this morning, and I sort of joked, will you be back for game 7? He laughed and said, I hope so. I have no idea. Wouldn't be completely shocked to have a release and see surgery. I really don't know. I don't know what the issue was. But for somebody who skated a handful of times at the beginning of this series to not draw in says to me that it was probably something structural where he was worried about making the injury worse. And again, I am 100% speculating. But no Chatfield, no Walker, and what does it do? A, it means that 2 rookies have to play. Scott Morrow, who I said during the season, not ready for the National Hockey League, let alone playoff games against the Florida Panthers. I still think Morrow will go to the minor leagues to start the season, and maybe he develops to the point where he can be a Carolina Hurricane next year, or maybe he has to spend another full year in the American Hockey League. I don't know. But to me, my only negative in the first period tonight was Scott Morrow with the puck looked terrified. Like, as I said to friends on Press Row, I'm not sure you could pull a pin out of Scott Morrow's behind with a Mack truck. He looked that tight. He didn't know what to do. And he made a couple of soft plays. By the way, only played about 7.5 minutes tonight. That was super predictable. But so he had to play. And Alexander Nikishin, again, way too much was expected of him by people not in Carolina's coaching staff or not on Carolina's coaching staff. They knew why that he was going to struggle at times under this pressure by that team. And we saw it tonight. We saw some of the hiccups that you get when you play rookies. This was game 4 for Nikishin. When you play rookies in a playoff game against that team, you are asking for trouble. And Rod knew. He knew it from the outset. And look, I know everybody knows better than the people who get paid to do these things. I know, y'all do. That's why I never questioned it. Because tonight, Carolina is in a much better spot if Chatfield and Walker are on the ice. Much better. And the notion, and I talked about it even up here with some of the bigwigs, the notion that if Walker and Chatfield came back, that you'd just keep Nikishin in the lineup. Man, unless you went 11-7, I don't know what you're doing, because I don't know who you're taking out. Walker and Chatfield were playing too well. I know how some people think, well, you take Orlov out. Please, stop it. And again, I thought Burns had a pretty good series here. I thought he was very good tonight. Anyway, doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter. No sense having that fight. Anyway, this series, to me, it didn't end in games 1 and 2 here, but it put Carolina in a spot that they didn't need to be in. Not that you had to win game 1. You just couldn't lose both. Because I think we saw Carolina play a much better brand of hockey in Florida. Game 1 was, to me, the game where Florida got ahead and shut it down. Game 2 was an early disaster. And like part of that is Andre playing maybe the worst period of hockey in his entire career. And Carolina getting the goal right at the start of the second period, but having it come back for offside, which was the right call, and never recovering from that. If they score that goal, maybe they make a game of it, and the end of it seems different. It might not have changed the outcome, but maybe it's not 5-0. Maybe if Aho scores there, the Hurricanes, I don't know, maybe that's the overtime game we get. Maybe Carolina fights back and ties. Who knows? Just all of we have no clue. But they were so bad in the first period that they just were never able to recover. And then the goal called back just added to it. But you go to game 3, and it's 1-1. Carolina's just played their best period of the entire series. I mean, it took them 8 periods to get to it. But the second period of game 3 in Florida was Hurricanes hockey. And then right after killing a penalty by Florida to start the third, Taylor Hall turns the puck over. Hall turns it over. Orlov gets turned in knots by, yes, Jesper Boqvist. And Pyotr Kochetkov, who had played 2 brilliant periods for Carolina, gets beat between the pads. His stick just, I don't know, there for a counterweight. And it's 2-1 Florida. Carolina had that next opportunity. We've already talked about it. Eric Robinson, also Mark Jankowski, had one right after that. I think the puck jumped his stick. If Carolina ties it, is that game different? Maybe. Probably. But they don't. And Florida takes it the other way after Scott Morrow makes a mistake at the blue line, allowing the puck out, which allows Florida, who had been hemmed in a long shift, and Bobrovsky didn't have a stick. If Morrow just flicks that puck into the corner and gets it in deep, Carolina can go through their cycle again. And you have a goalie without a stick, tired players on the ice. That was an opportunity. That was a moment. We talk about moments from game 1. This was a moment right there. And it got away from Carolina. And ultimately, although it didn't happen when Morrow couldn't keep the puck in the zone, because the puck eventually did get back in, but that real high danger opportunity for Carolina was gone it goes the other way, and Nico Mikkola scores the goal to make it 3-1. And then it just unravels. Barkov, Marchand, 5 goals in 9 minutes and 8 seconds of the second period, of the third period. And it goes from 1-1 to 6-1. The Jarvis power play goal from Stankoven doesn't even matter. Jarvis didn't even celebrate it. He just kind of looked like it made him sick that he scored a power play goal. But this is what the series was. There were moments where Carolina could have grabbed it and didn't. And in game 4, they grabbed those moments. They got the goal from Stankoven. They got a lead for the first time in the entire series. In the second period of game 4 was the first time they had the lead. And then tonight, they had it. They couldn't hang on to it because, again, moments got them. That's basically it from tonight and the series as a whole. And I'll sort of preview what our next conversation will be. And that'll come soon because we can't let it sit out there and not address it. What is the difference between Carolina and Florida? You play similar games. So what is the difference? And I'll just go right. We'll start from here. Alexander Barkov, Sam Bennett, Anton Lundell. 1, 2, 3 down the middle. Sebastian Aho, Jordan Stahl, because he's the second best center on the team. Who's the next best center? This is not about potential. This is about who is the next best center. Mark Jankowski? Yeah, okay. He's a fourth liner. Flat out fourth liner. And it is there that Carolina must start addressing the issues. To say that Jesperi Kotkaniemi has been a disappointment, I don't even know if that's true. I mean, when did the disappointing begin? Like, we shouldn't have looked at Jesperi Kotkaniemi this year and expected anything significantly more than what we received. I mean, at this stage, remember, this is year 7 for him too. Just like Andrei Svechnikov and Brady Tkachuk, who was drafted right behind Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Rasmus Dahlin, who was the first overall pick. Jesperi Kotkaniemi is who he is. Expecting him to be better than what he has shown, I think is foolish. It's hope, and hope is not a strategy. Was he better a few years ago? Yeah, I think he was. But professional sports does this. They figure everybody out. And now it's time for you to add something to your game that will help you get the most out of your ability. And I can't tell you that Jesperi Kotkaniemi has added anything that makes him a better player. So anyway, again, I didn't want to get into all of these things, but that's one of Carolina's problems. Right down the middle. Next case. Look at Carolina's forwards across the board. And we're just going to talk about the 2 scoring lines that Carolina possesses. Or how about the scoring players that Carolina possesses? Jarvis, Blake, Aho, Svechnikov, Stankoven. Did I forget anybody? Right? What do you notice similar? I'll put Taylor Hall in the mix. What do you notice similar among those players? Most of them are under 6 feet. Not saying you can't be good at under 6 feet, because you can. I mean, Aho is like right at 6 foot. Jarvis is 5'10". Blake's 5'11". He'll get stronger. Blake will be a much better player going forward. This is why when we look at, oh, man, I can't wait till Bradley Nadeau is here. Like, I've seen enough small. Florida. Look at some of their size. Barkov, Kachuk, Bennett. These are big players. Lusterinen, who left the game and did not return with an injury, cross-check from Carrier. Lundell. These are all bigger players. Sam Reinhart. This is size throughout the lineup. So Florida is better down the middle. Florida is bigger on the flanks. And yeah, they're meaner. And Carolina's got to get meaner. You don't have to get dirty. You just have to be able to be a mean player. This is not a friendly game. Hockey has nothing to do with friendly. It is an angry game. And you've got to learn to be a little angry and ornery and pissed off when you play. I know it's a joke, but what do I always say about Aho? Angry Aho is my favorite Aho. And Sebastian Aho played angry tonight. When he scored the second goal and he just went, yeah, that's it. That's it. You could tell Aho brought the right attitude to tonight. I'd like to see more of that from Sebastian. Carolina's got to get bigger among their scoring forwards. They got to get better down the middle, and they have to become meaner and more physical on the back end. And I don't want to hear, well, it's not the way the game is played. Like, bull. It is the way the game is played. It is absolutely the way the game is played. So whether it's Ekblad with some extra stuff, being a little bit physical in front of his own net, hey, I completely misread Nico Mikkola, who he wasn't awesome tonight. But the first 3 games in this series, he was the best player. He was phenomenal to me in this series. But Carolina's got to get bigger and meaner on the back end. They got to find somebody to play with Jacob Slavin. Like, again, not going to get into the roster construction. Even if Burns were to be re-signed, Carolina can't go into next season with Slavin and Burns as a top pair. Nikishin's going to be here. I'm not sure about Morrow. Burns and Orlov are wild cards. Don't know if either is going to be re-signed or if one of them is going to be re-signed. But you've got Chatfield. Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere, I thought, played very well this year. It wouldn't completely shock me if they flipped one or the other, depending on what they're looking for. But, man, Carolina's got to get meaner on the blue line. And they got to get bigger on the blue line. Yes, Nikishin is part of that. But after that, Chatfield's not super big. He can be physical, but generally is more of a skating defensive defenseman, and that's fine. But there are some things to address. And now we'll get into that a lot more when we talk next. And that'll come soon. It's just not going to be. I can't get into the whole roster thing tonight because there was just too much to unpack. And I'll just close on this. And I know it's going to sound like rationalizing, but it's not something you haven't heard from me over the course of this entire season. We have at times become a little spoiled by Carolina's success, whether it's during the regular season or, even though I know it doesn't seem like it, during the postseason. 7 years in a row in the playoffs, one of 4 teams to do that. 3 times to the Eastern Conference Finals in a 7-year span. It's pretty damn good, man. For a team that hadn't made the playoffs in a decade, yeah. Like, is it as good as you want it to be? No. But I keep saying this. There has not been a time, I'm not sure there's been a series in which Carolina has lost to a team that wasn't as good as them. Have they? I don't believe we've seen that. Carolina's pulled off some upsets, by the way. I mean, not a ton. They upset Washington in Series 1. I mean, they were the wild card. The Islanders weren't. Beat the Islanders, swept the Islanders in Series number 2. But they haven't lost to a team in a playoff series that they weren't, that was, not as good as them. The one exception, maybe, the 22 Rangers. Because Carolina had such a great regular season. But they got power played and they got beat by an elite goaltender. Oh, that's the other thing. Again, Freddie was great tonight. The only goal that you could have begged for something better would have been the Evan Rodriguez goal, but not meant to be. All right, that'll do it for us. Well, let me finish that thought. I didn't finish the thought. So the Hurricanes had a really good regular season. Could have been better. Took them a while to get to their game. We went through the whole Mikko Rantanen thing. And ultimately, Carolina reconstructed the roster and looked good enough to win those 2 series. Better than the Devils, even if the Devils were at full strength. Better than the Capitals, who had a great regular season. But I think you could see they were limited. And Carolina outclassed both teams. And then you ran up against the team that comes out of the other side, the Atlantic, with the 3 best teams in the conference in Tampa, Toronto, and Florida. And you drew the best team because that's what Florida was. Don't care what their record was. You drew the best team that played like you with bigger bodies and meaner. Did Carolina overachieve? No. Did they underachieve? Hell no. We all went into the year knowing that the roster wasn't as good. The fact that for the last 4 years in a row, you sent Brady Shea and Brett Pesce onto the ice for the most part when Pesce wasn't hurt. You sent those 2 as a pair basically since 21. Right, the year after the pandemic. And they formed one of the best shutdown pairs in the entire NHL. I don't care who you had after that. You weren't going to have a better shutdown defensive pair than that. You just weren't. So you got worse there. You lost some other big pieces. Teravainen's in Chicago. Even though he hadn't, last couple of years weren't great. They just didn't have the same team they have had. And yet they still produced this season and got to the conference finals. And I just have a hard time being upset. Yeah, I'm upset about tonight. I'm upset they didn't make a game 6. I won't be able to do another post-game podcast. But this team was, or did, maybe a little bit more than it was expected to do at the beginning of the season. But man, when they got down to the playoffs and they showed you what they were about, yeah, it was fair to think maybe this is it. Maybe this is the strange one. Maybe it's destiny. Carolina, Dallas, and the return of the Mikko, of the Moose. Yeah, Dallas ain't going to get there either. All right. I didn't hate the season. I loved the season. I like the future. But I am interested in the offseason, and we'll get to that the next time we meet, and that will be soon, I promise. I am Adam Gold. This has been the Canes Corner podcast, brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Ann and his crew do a great job. Until next time, which will be soon, I am Adam. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you later.